everyone, it is me back at you again, looking exactly the same as my last video because it's about 5 minutes later. Wow! Movie magic. And talking of movie magic, today I'm going to be talking about theatre magic. Oh. By the way, there is some building work going on right now outside my building, so if you can hear that, I'm very sorry. They just like being loud and I can't help that. So today I want to talk to you a bit about one of my favourite things in theatre, which is when things go wrong. So I'm going to be telling you about a few times where I've been to see some shows and they've had to either stop the show or just something a little bit special happened. And yeah, the reason I love when this happens is because it just reminds me of how live it all is. That sounds stupid, but like the thing I love about theatre is the fact that it's all immediate, like it's happening right in front of you as you're there, and anything could happen. Literally anything could happen, and sometimes things go wrong, and as long as everybody is safe and nothing too dramatic happens, it is often really fun to be there when a show stop happens. Now, the reason I'm making this video is because the other day, on Saturday, just gone, Saturday 12th of June, I was at a performance of Six, which I've had booked for ages, but it kept being put off, and they had to stop the show. And it got me thinking about all the other times where there actually aren't that many, but there are a few times that I've been in a show that's had to stop and it's been very exciting and often quite entertaining. Yeah, and I just wanted to share those stories with you and also see if you have any stories of either just things going wrong from shows you've seen, shows you've been in, whatever. I want to hear it because honestly, hearing about weird shit happening on stage it's like crack to me. I love it so much. I don't love crack. That's not what I mean. I just mean it makes me very happy. And I think it's just because I love knowing about what happens behind the scenes to make the magic happen, because theatre is such a magical experience that I find it kind of joyful when something almost breaks that magic and kind of shows you how the magic is made and how it all happens. Like, for some reason that just fills my heart with joy. So yeah, I think I've waffled on for enough time now, so I'm just gonna tell you about it. So Six is one of my absolute favourite musicals to go see. It just makes me very happy. It's so like just full of energy and loveliness and power, and I think it's great. And I was taking my boyfriend for the first time, so that was very exciting. And we got there and the show started a little bit late. I think it was about 5-10 minutes. And then once it started, I noticed that all 4 understudies were already on. I love seeing understudies anyway. It makes me very happy. I think because it feels like you're getting a kind of special version of the show that not everyone is going to see when you have a kind of combination of understudies on. So the only 2 members of like the principal cast who weren't understudies who were on were Jania Richard Knoll as Catherine O'Raragon and Danielle Steers as Catherine Parr. However, in the 3rd song, Don't Lose Your Head, which is Belinda's song, if you don't know the show, Danielle Steers, playing Parr, at some point leaves the stage. I noticed it in about I think like the 2nd chorus, and I was like, there's only 5 of them. Where's one gone? So they got to the end of Don't You Lose Your Head. Colette Guitart, I don't know how you pronounce her name, I'm sorry. But yeah, she nailed it as Anne Boleyn. She was fantastic. And yeah, they finished the song. And then the stage manager came on stage and said, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to stop the show and, you know, take everyone off stage and shuffle things around a bit and then we'll carry on. So I think what happened was Danielle Steers, who normally plays Parr, was maybe feeling ill. I don't know what happened, but she went off stage and then wasn't able to complete the show. So after about 15 minutes, the stage manager came back on stage and said, we've sorted everything out, everything's going to be fine, but we are going to have Hannah Stewart, who was the understudy previously playing Seymour up to that point, she was going to be swapping to play Catherine Parr halfway through the show, and they were going to bring on new super swing Liv, as the stage manager called her, to play Jane Seymour instead. So from that point on, it was a normal, excellent show. Liv Alexander played Seymour from that point on. I think she played Seymour because that was the part whose song would be like next. That doesn't make any sense. Essentially, she went straight into singing Seymour's solo, rather than having to wait for like to play Parr at the very end and do her big kind of solo at the end, because that would be a lot more intimidating, because it was Liv's West End debut, and also the first time that she'd ever played Seymour at all. I think she had been a swing / understudy in a cruise production of Six before, and had played a couple of other characters but hadn't played Seymour. So we got to see not only her West End debut but also her Seymour debut, which was so exciting. And the whole time through Heart of Stone, which is Seymour solo, I was just sitting there like, please girl, you can do this, I believe in you, you can do this, like rooting for her so hard, because I was like, you can do it, hun, yes. Because obviously it's so nerve-wracking having like 10 minutes of notice for making your West End debut mid-show, and she absolutely nailed it. She sang Heart of Stone like no one I've ever heard sing it before. It was absolutely incredible, and she got the biggest round of applause at the end because everyone was just like, yes! And then all the rest of the cast were also incredible. We had Sherelle J as Anne of Cleves, Zara McIntosh as Catherine Howard, and then Hannah Stewart as Catherine Parr. And honestly, Hannah was absolutely incredible. Like, she took like the options up in the song at the very end, like up another level, and I was like, I don't think I've ever heard anyone belt a note that high. And honestly, I'm just so glad I was there. It was a very special show, and it was also an absolutely incredible show, and the perfect show to go back to after not seeing theatre for so long, because it's just full of joy, and it just made me so happy. My second story is actually also about Six, because at this point Six is kind of notorious in like the West End theatre like community, I guess, for being really bad for like needing extra emergency covers. I don't know how it happens. I think they're cursed, because it's happened fairly often where they have had not enough understudies and not enough main cast to fill up the entire Six queens. And when I went to see it for, I think, the second time in July of 2019, yeah, July 2019, I went with two of my friends from school who hadn't seen it before. We arrived and I looked at the little cast board that was outside in the kind of box office area, and on this little board it said the two main cast people would be playing Aragon and Boleyn. There would be an understudy, Courtney Stapleton, who I adore, on for Seymour. There would be Genesis Lene on for Cleves, who was one of the original cast members of Six, who did their very first West End run for like a few weeks, I think, and is on the album. So she would be returning to play Anna of Cleves. Then I think, yeah, normal main cast for Catherine Howard, and then Toby Marlow, the writer of the show, would be playing Catherine Parr, and I was like, this has never happened before. So then we got into the auditorium, I was buzzing, and just before the show started they said that because of the kind of cast situation, that would be a special concert version rather than the full like choreographed production. So they all came on and they had mic stands, and I think Toby Marlow had a script as well, and they also had like bottles of water and stuff, so it was like a full-on concert, and it was a great show. I felt a little bit bad for my friends who hadn't seen it before because they obviously didn't get to see like the full stage production, but for me as a fan who'd already seen it, it was incredibly exciting, and I think everyone nailed it. And to top it all off, like I think it was a couple of days later, I was getting on the tube with my boyfriend and going somewhere, and then we were just on the Central Line, and then who should get on the train and sit directly opposite me but Toby Marlow? And I was like, what's happening here? So I waited a couple of stops to kind of be like, is it him? Am I gonna say something and be like, hello? But then I did, and we had a really nice chat, and I was like, you know, I saw you on you know, whenever it was, I think Sunday, you know, in the evening show, and you were amazing, and we had a little chat about it, and he said, you know, that he wasn't prepared at all and was absolutely shitting himself, and yeah, and just had a nice little conversation on the tube. And I was like, honestly, the chances of that, wild. It was wild. So the other shows that I want to tell you about, they aren't as dramatic or kind of weird as what happened with Six, partly because they're not to do with cast members, they're just to do with like technical issues on stage, but they still resulted in a show stop. So the first one, it's not very exciting, but it was when I went to see Billy Elliot at the, I think it was at Cardiff Millennium Centre, which is one of my favourite theatres. It's great. It was a tour production and it was wonderful. I love Billy Elliot so much. It's maybe my favourite musical ever. And this was my first time seeing it live, like a full stage production, and I had the best time. But in the closing number of Act 1, which is called Angry Dance, because it's a dance where the main character, Billy, is very angry. I know, surprise. Basically, there are lots of very complicated like moving pieces, and basically the kid playing Billy is like moving around a lot. He's doing very intense like tap dancing, but there are also lots of other characters on stage being like riot police, and it's meant to be like, you know, him going through the town and kind of like essentially dancing himself into like a frenzy until he collapses, and that's the end of Act 1. And there's a little bit where a kind of almost like a mini shed, I don't know how else to describe it, like rises up out of the stage, and he kind of dances in it as it's like moving up and down. It's hard to describe, and essentially what happened was he did that little bit, and then essentially the dance kind of petered out until the music stopped. They brought the curtain down and said, you know, we think the boy playing Billy has hit his head on the little set piece. He was fine, by the way, he was absolutely fine. They just wanted to check. He tried to carry on dancing because he was like, you know, I'm fine, I'll keep going. And someone obviously came on and was like, no, you need to get yourself checked out if you've hit your head on this piece of set, and took him off stage, and then everyone kind of just gradually stopped. But yeah, so that was a bit kind of worrying for a little bit, and obviously the curtain came down and everything. They just stopped for a few minutes, but then they checked him out, he was totally fine, and we just carried on. Then lastly, I have a story from Les Mis. This was the second time that I went to see Les Mis in, I think, 2014 or 2015, and it was one of the first West End shows that I ever saw, and this was also my first instance of seeing a show stop. So what happened was, it was at the beginning of the sewer scene, so the barricades are supposed to, like, I think rotate and go off stage, and then the stage becomes the sewer. and you get Thénardier coming on and kind of looting lots of people's like dead bodies. I'm aware that this probably won't make much sense unless you're familiar with Les Mis, so I am sorry, but it's very specific and kind of, I don't know, it would take a long time if I wanted to explain it fully. So yeah, basically there are two massive pieces of set that are the barricade. They're meant to go off stage, like separate from being the barricade and go off stage. One of them went off stage, one of them did not. It just sat on the stage and was like, I'm not going anywhere, bitch. Thénardier just come on, he was like, oh look, we're in the sewers, there's a dead person, I'm gonna steal his money. And then I think he must have noticed that one half of the barricade was still on stage when it should not have been, because he kind of turned around and looked at it and like mimed as if he was like trying to push it off, like. And because Thénardier is the kind of character, like sort of comedic relief character, who often addresses the audience anyway, this kind of made sense and was very funny, little bit of like improvisation. Also then I think a stage manager or someone came on and they were like, sorry, we're gonna have to stop the show. And all the guys, like, you know, Thénardier and the dead people were all still on stage, so they all had to like, all the corpses had to just like stand up and walk off. It just stopped for like 5 minutes maybe. They figured out what was happening with the temperamental barricade and then carried on, and it was great. I think they restarted the scene, so we got the whole thing again, but it just cracked me up with, like, you know, the stage manager coming on stage and then Thénardier being like to the dead person, you know, come on mate, get up, he's not really dead, and then they were like walked off stage together. It just cracked me up. Anyway, those are all the times that I've been at a show and things have gone slightly wrong or been a bit unusual. Anyway, it definitely makes for a memorable show, whatever happens. So yes, I have some stories of shows that I've been in where things have gone wrong. I don't think any of them are particularly interesting, but, you know, just people falling over boats backstage. That was in the production of Peter Pan. Someone fell over, tripped over a boat backstage and split open her lip, which wasn't great. There was also the time when we were doing the first show that I was stage manager for at university, and we were meant to have sand pouring out onto the stage from these little bags that were stuck on poles in the corners of the stage, and ensemble members were meant to come on and like stab the bags of sand with like blunt knives, and it would then pour out onto the stage. And we were doing, I think it was the dress rehearsal, but we had an audience, and the sand just wouldn't come out. It was way too watery and like thick, so the ensemble members were just stood there stabbing at these bags, desperately trying to get the sand to come out. And I was sitting upstairs in like the tech bit, in the little tech booth, like, oh god, please stop. Anyway, please let me know if you have any stories of seeing shows or being in shows where things have gone wrong, because like I said, they are my favourite things. I love hearing about it. As long as everyone was okay, I will take joy in it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon.